In today's video, I'm going to show you the route that I took through Idaho and Montana. So after coming through the Teton Pass from Wyoming, I stopped in Idaho Falls just for the night, and there's a Planet Fitness there. Unfortunately, the smoke had rolled into pretty much all of the western states, and it was very thick in Idaho. But I tried to make the best of it and headed to Craters of the Moon National Monument, which is quite the weird name, but thought since I was somewhat close that I'd go and check it out. It's definitely one of those national monuments that is kind of out of the way. There's not much around it, so I thought since I was only an hour away, I'd just scratch it off my bucket list, and then I don't need to go back there someday. It's definitely a smaller park. I would compare it to the size of Devil's Tower National Monument, so there's not a ton to do, not a ton of places to hike, but it is pretty interesting, and there's a few neat lava caves that you can check out, and just reading some of the history on this place is pretty interesting. Again, the smoke was pretty thick, so I wasn't able to see very far into the distance, but still worth a stop, I'd say. After Craters of the Moon, I headed to Ketchum, where I filled up on fuel and headed into the Sawtooth National Forest, which was super cool. There were so many places to pull off and explore through there. It's definitely on my bucket list to go back and see more of Idaho someday. I didn't stay too long in this area because the smoke was so thick, but did a little hiking and hiked up to that mine shaft that I made a video about. You can find a link for that in the description below. I continued up towards Salmon, and before I got there, I stopped at two different hot springs. One was right on the side of the highway and poured out of this tube and flowed down towards the river. Somebody had made a bunch of pools down right where the hot water met the river, so it was kind of fun. You could pick which temperature pool you wanted to sit in and then jump in the river to cool off.
Ooh, it's hot.
The next hot springs was definitely one of the coolest places I've been to, and spent a good portion of the day hanging out and soaking up there. And then headed up through Salmon, parked somewhere in the National Forest on my way to Missoula, hung out in Missoula for a day and one night, and then headed to Hot Springs, Montana, where I met up with my buddy Rowan on the bicycle. And then after that, continued to Flathead Lake and spent a couple days exploring in that area. That lake is beautiful, and the forest land around it is pretty awesome. Woke up early one morning and caught the sunrise over the lake, which was super cool. And luckily the smoke had cleared after I'd gotten through Missoula, so I was back in fresh air again. After Flathead Lake, headed up through Kalispell on my way to Glacier National Park, where I did a bunch of hiking, and my cousin and some of his friends came for a visit. We built a raft and floated it down the river and made a fun video out of it. I'll leave that in the description below as well.
We just hiked up a stupid hill. Let's go explore!
I could post tons of clips from Glacier National Park, but maybe I'll make some separate videos on that one day. After Glacier National Park, I kind of had to backtrack to get where I wanted to go. So I stopped backtracking near Hot Springs, where I continued west and headed back into the tip of Idaho. I stopped at a town called Wallace for the night, and that town is pretty neat. It's an old historic mining town and a lot of history there and some cool hikes to do. Definitely worth a stop. It's right off the interstate. Then I continued up to Coeur d'Alene. I'm not the type of guy that likes big cities very much, but Coeur d'Alene was beautiful, at least down by the water. And they have the longest floating boardwalk in the world there, so that was kind of neat to hike that. And the weather was perfectly beautiful when I was there. I wanted to do more hiking and exploring in the tip of Idaho, but I kind of screwed up my knee in Glacier National Park, and hiking was not feeling so great. So only spent a couple days traveling through Idaho. So I traveled from Idaho through Montana back through the tip of Idaho in about 2.5 weeks. So I didn't spend much time there, and definitely want to get back to check out Idaho and Montana in more depth someday. But I'm trying to avoid the cold this year and had a bunch more places that I want to hit before winter sets in. So I made my way through pretty quickly. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in Washington.